She walked into her home like any other day, completely unaware it would be the last time anyone would ever see her alive. Within hours, her phone would fall silent, her children would be picked up without her, and the man who claimed to love her would begin telling a story that didn't quite add up. But when investigators uncovered what really happened behind those closed doors, even they were left shaken.
There's no avoiding the terrible anger and the unanswerable question, how could someone do this?
Loved ones are still working to pick up the pieces after their heart-wrenching loss.
The morning started like any other. Meline Kingsbury had just finished a workout at the gym. It was routine, predictable, safe. She and her boyfriend left together, heading to drop off their children at daycare before continuing with their day. Nothing about that moment stood out. Nothing felt wrong. It was just another ordinary morning in a quiet Minnesota town. But it would be the last ordinary moment anyone would ever see her have. Just a few hours later, something unsettling happened. Her boyfriend returned alone to pick up the children. Meline wasn't with him. At first, it didn't seem like cause for alarm. Maybe she was busy. Maybe she had gone somewhere else. But as the hours passed, her absence became impossible to ignore. Then her phone went silent. No calls. No messages. Nothing. Her family began to worry. Her sister took to social media, desperately asking for help, sharing her photo, hoping someone, somewhere, had seen her.
I need your help. This is my sister, Meline. She's missing. This is just very basic info that we've put on flyers and things around town.
What started as concern quickly spiraled into fear. Because this wasn't like her. Meline didn't just disappear. As the search began, investigators tried to piece together her last known movements. Surveillance footage showed her entering her home that morning. Calm, focused, just like always. But there was one chilling detail. There was no footage of her ever leaving. Inside the home, everything seemed normal at first glance. Too normal. There were no signs of forced entry, no signs of a struggle, no chaos, just silence. But as investigators looked closer, subtle details began to stand out. Her phone was still inside the house, her wallet hadn't been taken, and most disturbingly, the bedsheets were missing. That was the moment everything changed. Police no longer believed this was a simple disappearance. They believed Meline had been taken, or worse. Attention quickly turned to the last person known to have seen her alive, her boyfriend, Adam Fravel. When officers spoke to him, he appeared cooperative, calm. He explained that they had dropped the kids off together that morning. After that, he claimed he went about his day running errands while Meline was supposed to continue with her own plans. He said he tried calling her, texting her, but she never responded. At first, his story seemed plausible, but investigators weren't convinced, because the more they looked into his timeline, the more it began to fall apart. Before even sitting down with him for questioning, police had already started verifying his movements. And what they found raised serious concerns. There was a gap in his timeline, an entire period of time unaccounted for, nearly an hour, where no one knew where he was. Then came the surveillance footage. It showed something incredibly suspicious. Adam had been seen outside the home, tampering with a vehicle. He was switching license plates between cars, not once, but carefully, deliberately. This wasn't something someone does by accident. This was someone trying to avoid being tracked. And that changed everything. When investigators confronted him, the tone of the conversation shifted. They began pressing harder, pointing out inconsistencies, questioning the logic of his story. Why would Meline leave without her phone? Without her belongings? Without her car? None of it made sense. And deep down, they knew it. Still, Adam denied everything. He insisted he had nothing to do with her disappearance. He maintained that he was just as confused as everyone else. But the evidence was starting to paint a very different picture. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered details about the relationship between Meline and Adam that hadn't been obvious at first. Despite living together, the two were no longer a couple. Their relationship had already ended months earlier. They were simply sharing a space, raising their children, while quietly preparing to go their separate ways. But it wasn't a peaceful situation. Friends revealed that their relationship had been troubled. There had been arguments, tension, even violence. One witness described seeing Adam strike Meline during a video call, an incident that deeply alarmed those close to her. Despite repeated encouragement to report the abuse, she never did. She didn't want the father of her children to face legal consequences, but that decision may have cost her everything. As the investigation continued, another disturbing pattern emerged. The day before Meline disappeared, Adam had taken steps to disable nearly all digital tracking connected to him. His phone's location services were turned off. GPS systems were disabled. Even cameras in and around his environment had been removed or deactivated. It was as if he had prepared for something he didn't want anyone to trace. Meanwhile, the search for Meline intensified. Volunteers, law enforcement, and community members combed through fields, roads, and wooded areas, hoping to find any sign of her. Her story spread across the country, gaining attention online, with thousands following updates and hoping for a miracle. But days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Still, there was nothing, until one day everything changed. On a quiet stretch of land near a rural road, an officer noticed something unusual. It was subtle, easy to miss. A gray bedsheet, tightly wrapped and secured with black tape, hidden in a drainage ditch. It didn't belong there, and when investigators opened it, they made a devastating discovery. Inside was the body of Meline Kingsbury. She was identified through dental records and tattoos. The same woman who had walked into her home weeks earlier, now found discarded in a remote location. There was a rope around her neck. The medical examiner confirmed what investigators had already feared. This was not an accident. It was murder. The location of the body made the situation even more disturbing. It was found near property connected to Adam's family, not far from where he had claimed to be during the time he couldn't account for.
The area had been previously searched, but Maddie's body was covered and concealed in such a manner that she was not visible.
And suddenly, that missing hour in his timeline became impossible to ignore. Later, more evidence surfaced. A neighbor's surveillance footage showed Adam driving through a wooded area behind the property. In the back of the vehicle, a shovel. Investigators would later recover that same shovel, and the questions only grew darker. What was he doing out there? Why was he in the exact area where her body would eventually be found? Was he trying to hide something or move it? Inside his parents' property, more evidence was uncovered. Items linked directly to Meline. Her belongings, electronic devices, even a burned laptop were found discarded. And then there was the final chilling detail. Meline had a life insurance policy, one that would have financially benefited Adam and their children. By this point, the case against him was overwhelming. He was arrested and charged with murder, but even then, he maintained his innocence. As the trial began, prosecutors laid out the timeline piece by piece. The missing hour, the switched license plates, the disabled tracking, the physical evidence, the body, the location. Every detail pointed in one direction. The jury listened, carefully, patiently, and in the end, they reached a verdict. Guilty. Adam Fravel was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Life behind bars without the possibility of parole. That's the fate of Adam Fravel, who was convicted of killing Meline Kingsbury.
Even as the sentence was handed down, he continued to deny involvement. He claimed he never harmed her, that he was innocent. But for Medeline's family, the truth had already been revealed. There was no closure, no sense of peace. Just the unbearable reality that she was gone and would never come back. Her children would grow up without their mother. Her family would carry the weight of her loss forever. And the quiet town where it all began would never feel the same again. Because behind the walls of that ordinary home, something unthinkable had happened. A crime so calculated, so disturbing that even seasoned investigators were left shaken. And it all started with a morning that seemed completely normal, until it wasn't.